The tavern reeked of oil, sweat, and smoke that clung to every beam like a curse. A good place to drink, not a good place to talk back. Naturally, I was doing both. Humans, one of the fox-snout locals muttered as I lifted my glass. Always tinkering, always talking. No bite. I wasn't planning to bite. My only plan was to drink until the floor felt like a friendly mattress. But then she walked in, Kilena, the alpha of this den. Her long crimson hair spilled over her shoulders like living flame, catching every lamplight. Armor gleamed across her tall frame, and 9 scarlet-tipped tails moved behind her with slow, imperious grace. She didn't look at me, but she didn't need to. The whole room bent toward her as though she was gravity-given flesh. I should have shut up. I should have ducked. Instead, I muttered, too loudly, bet she polishes that tail more than her blade. The chuckle that followed belonged only to me. The silence after belonged to everyone else. Kilena's molten eyes turned, pinning me like metal to a magnet. You, she said, her voice smooth as claws over steel. Say it again. I clutched my wrench, greasy from a day's work. Not a sword, not a blaster, just a tool that smelled of burnt circuits. You strut too much, I slurred. Let's see how you fight. Gasps erupted across the tavern. Tails fluffed, mugs hit the floor. Someone whispered, he just proposed. My stomach lurched. Proposed? No. I challenged her. The bartender shook his head, eyes wide. Human, same thing here. Fight an alpha, fight for her hand. Her smirk widened, flashing sharp teeth. You want my hand, little human? My tail? I opened my mouth to correct the record, but what spilled out was, I've handled bigger tools. The crowd howled. To them, it wasn't bravado about mechanics, it was stamina. Kilena circled me slowly, her red hair glowing like firelight. You've swung your tool before witnesses. Now you can't take it back. My protests only dug me deeper. Every phrase twisted itself dirtier in translation. When I shouted, I only wanted a quick bout, whistles filled the air, because they heard only innuendo. Kilena stepped close, brushing one flaming lock of hair against my cheek. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. You struck first. Now finish it. The wrench slipped in my sweaty grip. Wait, what? The tavern erupted in cheers. Tankards clashed, bets exchanged. Someone shouted, about time our alpha found a mate. No, 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 I muttered. This is the stupidest misunderstanding in history. Her hand shot out, claws kissing my wrist. The grip was iron, but her smile softened. Then prove it. Show that your bite matches your bark. Eyes glowed around us. No one believed me. To them, my denial was shyness, my slurred words were oaths. In one drunken swing, I had transformed from mechanic to fiancé. Kilena tugged me toward the door, her tails sweeping like banners of victory. The crowd parted, whistling, chanting, drunk on the drama. I didn't propose. I protested, stumbling along. You did, she said calmly. You lifted your tool. You showed the pack your strength. You proposed. The moons painted her red hair with silver fire as she dragged me outside. My wrench suddenly felt heavier, like a wedding ring welded to my hand. And just like that, a bad tavern decision had become an accidental engagement. They paraded me through the colony square like I was a trophy stag caught in a hunt. Every tail swished, every muzzle grinned, every voice whispered the same cursed word, fiancé. This is a mistake, I hissed, trying to wrench my wrist free. Kilena's claws pressed lightly, a reminder she could shred me at any moment. You swung first, she said smoothly, her red hair flickering like fire under the twin moons. In my people's law, that means intent. Intention is binding. It was meaningless. I snapped. Her head tilted, ears flicking as if I'd cracked a joke. Meaningless? You bared your strength before witnesses. That is never meaningless. The crowd murmured agreement. Someone shouted, a human finally dares. Another chimed in, bold mate, bold future. I rubbed my temples. Look, in human culture, fighting isn't romance. A duel is a duel. A proposal is, I faltered, realizing what that meant. Flowers. Rings. Dinners. Not weapons. Her smirk deepened. So you court with fragile things. We court with battle. You fought, therefore you love. Groans of approval echoed. A fox-faced male whispered to his friend, humans must be strange in bed. So careful. My face burned. I'm not careful. The tavern square erupted in laughter. Someone yelled, then show her. Prove it. I buried my face in my palm. Every denial only fanned the flames. Kilena pulled me onto a raised stone at the square's center. The ceremonial circle. My gut turned to ice. Here, she announced, her voice carrying like thunder. Before the pack, I accept his challenge. I accept his proposal. The crowd howled, tails beating the ground like war drums. She raised my hand high, like I had won a battle I never wanted to fight. No, wait, I didn't propose, I just. You keep saying no, she interrupted, lips curling. But your body follows me. Your hand stays in mine. Your eyes lock on me. That's because you're dragging me. And my eyes, of course they're locked, you're terrifying. The crowd chuckled. Look at him stare, someone muttered. I'm glaring. I protested. Glaring is staring with fire, Kilena countered. It means passion. You glared, therefore you burn. The cheers shook the air. My shoulders slumped. Logic had no chance here. Then she purred, low and sharp, you even touched my tail. The square gasped. It was an accident. I blurted. Her whiskers brushed my ear. No one touches a tail by accident. Tail touching is claiming. I didn't claim you, I bumped you. The crowd roared louder. He branded her with love, someone cried. I wanted the ground to swallow me. Kilena pressed closer, chest to chest, her hair smelling faintly of smoke and wild roses. Now we seal the bond. Blood drained from my face. Seal. You mean, oh no. Not here. The crowd erupted in laughter, catching my panic like fuel on a blaze. He's shy, they shouted. Look how red he is. In my world, I stammered, sealing the bond means, private. The square froze, then gasps filled the air. Someone shouted, for humans, consummation itself is the vow. Kilena's grin widened. So you would give yourself tonight? My lungs gave up on air. That's not what I meant. Her gaze pinned me, molten and relentless. Your blush is proof. You want to seal it with me. Tonight. I tried to hide my wrench behind my back. Too late. Her eyes flicked down. Still gripping your tool, she murmured, loud enough for all. You never let go. The crowd collapsed in laughter. Look at him, ready for the honeymoon already. Why does everything I say sound filthy to you people? I groaned. Because truth sounds filthy, she whispered. And truth is beautiful. She raised her arm high. Witness. He is mine. By fight, by fire, by tool, by tail, I claim him. The roar of approval nearly cracked my bones. I tried one last desperate plea. I didn't propose. Her smile gleamed like a blade in moonlight. And yet, here we are. The chant of my name rose, twisting it into a lover's song. My wrench felt less like a tool and more like a wedding band welded to my palm. And Kilena, with her fiery hair, her relentless certainty, looked every bit the bride who had just won her groom. The night didn't end in the square. Of course not. That would have been merciful. Instead, Kilena dragged me beyond the colony lights, out under the twin moons, her 9 scarlet-tipped tails sweeping like banners of doom. "This is the honeymoon hunt," she said. "Honeymoon what?" I croaked. "Tradition. The new mate chases the alpha through the wild. If he catches her, he proves his worth. If not, he does not deserve her." I blinked, clutching my wrench like a lifeline. "So instead of dinner and wine, you want me to play tag in the woods?" Her grin flashed. "Not tag. Hunt. You chase, you pin, you bite. Only then is the bond complete." "You want me to bite you?" Her crimson hair glowed silver in the moonlight as she smirked. "You already nipped my pride. Now I want more." I groaned. "I'm a mechanic, not a wolf. I fix engines, not." "Then fixing me will be easy," she cut in. And before I could protest further, she darted into the trees, leaving only a flash of red and the sound of laughter. Behind me, the pack gathered, their howls ringing. "Run, human. Show her your stamina." "He won't last 3 rounds, one shouted. 5, another countered. "Look at his grip." My face burned as I stumbled into the underbrush, branches whipping my arms, roots snagging my boots. Every step felt like an innuendo. Then I noticed something, scratches on bark, too deliberate to be random. She was leaving a trail. She wanted me to follow. "Fine," I muttered. "If I can't chase you like a predator, I'll outthink you like a human." I dug into my toolkit. A length of rope. A few clamps. A pulley rig. Small tools, but enough to set a trap or two. While the pack cheered in the distance, I tied knots, propped branches, and rigged snares. Sweat stung my eyes. Hours blurred together. At last, Kilena appeared again, gliding through moonlight, smug as ever. She stepped right into my loop. The snare snapped tight, yanking her upside down. Tails flared as she dangled from a branch, red hair spilling like fire against the night. The pack howled in delight. He caught her. Panting, I leaned on my wrench. "See? Human brains beat fox legs any day." Her eyes glowed, furious yet oddly impressed. "You cheated." I improvised. "Humans don't need claws when we've got creativity." The crowd bellowed. He tied her up. "That's a real honeymoon." My blood froze. "That's not." But Kilena laughed, a low, throaty sound that made my skin prickle. "You bound me. You dared to trap me. You're bolder than I thought." I wasn't trying to. Her hair brushed against my cheek even as she dangled. "Now finish it." "Finish what?" I stammered. "Untie me. Pin me. Seal the bond." Her smirk sharpened. "You've been saying yes since the tavern." The pack chanted in unison. "Finish it. Finish it." My stomach twisted. She wasn't wrong. Every clumsy word, every step, every trap had pushed me deeper into her story. And damn it, she was gorgeous. Impossible, relentless, terrifying, but gorgeous. The pack surged forward, hoisting us both onto their shoulders, carrying us like victors. I barely had the strength to keep my wrench in hand, but I held it anyway. They paraded us until we reached a clearing lit by glowing fungi, strange lanterns of green and blue. They lowered her gently, freed from the snare. She stood tall, brushing off leaves, her red hair glowing brighter than the fungus. For the first time, her expression softened. "You surprised me, human." "No one surprises me." I rubbed my neck, embarrassed. I surprise people by accident. Mostly by breaking things. You broke my pride, she admitted. And I like it. The crowd sighed, swooning as if it was the most romantic confession ever. I coughed. So, what now? She leaned close, breath hot on my ear. Now we're mated. You fought. You caught. You claimed. And whether you like it or not, I like you. Something inside me cracked. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe something else. But I laughed, a wild, hopeless laugh. Fine. But if this is a marriage, I get to fix your engines. You clearly don't know how to tune a core. She blinked, then grinned. Engines? Yeah, I said, lifting my wrench. Engines, ships, machines. If I'm stuck with you, at least you're getting regular maintenance. Her grin softened. Then fix me, mechanic. Tune me. Make sparks fly. The pack erupted, half of them laughing, the other half cheering like I'd pledged eternal love. My own words twisted filthy in their ears, and I was too tired to argue anymore. Guess love's just a contact sport out here, I muttered. Kilena slid her arm around my shoulders, her fiery hair brushing my cheek, her voice a rumble. With you, human, every sport ends the same way. I win, I sighed. Her teeth flashed. We'll see about that. The night ended in firelight, laughter, and the certainty that my life no longer belonged to me. It belonged to her. To them. To the bond one never intended but couldn't escape. And somehow, against every law of sense, I didn't hate it. Dawn after a night of fever is never gentle. The forest around the clearing smelled of smoke and singed berries, and the banners, bright cloth and carved talismans, shivered in a wind that promised rain. They herded me to the long table like both criminal and king, slapping my shoulders with laughter that hit a question, would I stand or would I break? The chieftain, Tavrin, rose and struck his staff, the single sound folded the crowd into silence like a curtain. Rites followed in a blur, songs, oaths, dares, and mugs passed until wrists were sticky with sweet, sharp drink. If the tavern's chaos had been accidental, this morning felt deliberate, every awkward joke and pointed cheer was a stitch in a seam meant to bind us. Kilena stood at the head of the table, her red hair braided with small iron gears that winked in the light. She watched me with a calm that made my nerves look foolish. They announced trials of stamina, endurance of hunger, of cold, of watchfulness, and a final test of skill. The pack loved spectacle. Warriors showed how long they could hold a cold stone, how they could stand sleepless through a vigil, how they carried weight without complaint. When my turn came, each I cut like a blade. The first trial was simple on paper, stay awake until the last bell with only water, but simplicity becomes a weapon when everyone watches for failure. I kept knotting the rope, counting hours with fingers that knew deadlines better than tenderness. Hunger hollowed me as missing gears hollow a machine, it made thinking precise and sharp. I slept in stutters and dreamed of Kilena's hair like a flare. Each waking earned a cheer, as if breathing had become art. The trials weren't only about proof, they were an awkward courtship, staged the way their people understood claiming. When dawn bled thin through pines I strapped boots and ran the course. Gaps to leap, ropes to swing, a fallen log to vault, ordinary obstacles turned rigorous. My lungs burned, elbows scraped, and each stumble was a note in the crowd's song that sometimes ended in boos and sometimes grudging cheer. The chase left blood under my nails and a grin that did not feel wholly mine. Rylan, a streetwise lad from the outskirts, whooped encouragement that sounded like a benediction. The last task was quiet, repair the old skiff beached by the river. It had a blown coupler and a nest of brittle wires. They wanted hands that could steady under pressure, not only legs that could run. I crawled into the belly of the boat and found corroded clamps and tangled insulation. Kilena sat on the gunwale, humming low, like a metronome. We passed tools in a small rhythm, hand me the clamp, hold it there, and the work spoke more meaning than any speech could. When I threaded the last conductor, her fingers brushed mine. It was the briefest touch, private and steadying. The skiff shivered, coupler caught, and life returned to the old hull. Kilena laughed then, short, surprised, and for a heartbeat the clearing and its ridiculous rituals melted to a single private breath. I wiped grease from my hands and felt oddly light, as if a weight had been reallocated into something useful. I sat on an overturned crate, chest heaving, and felt the binding take a different shape, not mockery or spectacle, but a slow making in sweat and shared breaths. Kilena's hand found mine in the dim between toolboxes, neither possessive nor distant, simply certain. "You did well, Merrick," she said, and my name felt like a harbor. It was the first time she had used it outside ceremony. I gave a helpless grin and said nothing clever, which was apparently acceptable. We did not have a cinematic confession. Instead there was a pause threaded with ordinary sounds. The slap of a lid, the hiss of meat on a spit, a dog sniffing at the edge of the wood. I had expected to resist until custom hollowed me, but the stubborn ridge inside me softened under small things, running until my legs shook, waking when my body screamed, repairing a boat with hands that sometimes brushed another's by accident. The bond had been forming in the seams of these tasks. Back in the circle the chieftain placed circlets of braided root and iron upon our heads, clumsy crowns smelling of riverbank. Kilena's braid brushed my forehead as she stepped close. "Stay," she breathed, one word like a map. I nodded, feeling the wrench in my hand warm not from heat but with something like possibility. They roared and cheered and, for the first time, the chant sounded like welcome rather than accusation. Not because tradition had won me, but because the work we'd done, traps and tuning, running and waking, the long, small devotions of a ridiculous night, had stitched us together honestly. I still held my wrench, it was still a tool. When Kilena tightened her fingers in mine it felt less like a ring and more like a work belt, practical, necessary, something I would wear into whatever came next. The feast that followed was a messy hallelujah, platters slid along rough-hewn boards, songs rose and fell, and Kilena fed me a strip of roasted meat with her fingers, smudging grease on my cheek and then kissing it away as if blessing the stain. Children pressed close, elders grinned with teeth like carved ivory, and Rylan clapped me on the back with a grin that said, "Welcome to the mess." Later, when the clearing thinned and we found a sliver of quiet, Kilena leaned her forehead to mine and said, "We will learn each other's languages." It was not a boast but a plan, a small promise shaped like a map. In that instant I saw the difference between a binding enforced by noise and one built by work. One is loud, the other grows in the small, steady tasks you perform together. I tightened my grip on her hand and realized I wanted ordinary in a way that surprised me. We walked back toward the colony, shoulder to shoulder, sleeves smeared with grease and dirt, circlets snug and ridiculous and impossibly right. The pack songs lifted around us, and for the first time the chant felt like welcome. My wrench hung at my side, still a tool, still useful. But when Kilena squeezed my fingers I felt the future in a way I hadn't expected, not as a sentence to serve but as a project to share. That turned into one hell of a night, huh? If you liked watching a hyper-awkward human bumble his way into an ancient Fox people tradition, give this video a thumbs up, it helps weird little stories like this find their way to other oddballs who'll appreciate them. If you enjoyed the chemistry, or the chaos, hit subscribe and ring the bell to catch the next episode where Merrick inevitably breaks something vital and Kilena scolds him with a smile. And hey, if you know someone who'd laugh at accidental engagements, share this with them and brighten their day. I wrote this rewrite to keep the heart of the original but give you a fresher spin, renamed characters, a red-haired alpha, and a human mechanic who learns that sometimes love is less about words and more about showing up. If you want me to continue this world, explore how Merrick learns to tune starship cores or how Kilena navigates human customs, say the word. I can take the next chunk deeper. Travel scenes, ship repairs, pack politics, or soft domestic moments that show why they're stubborn together. If you want the rest now, hit continue in the comments or type it below and I'll produce part 5 as a fan extra. Also tell me whether you want the pack renamed, or different character appearances. Your call, Captain. Thanks for reading, thanks for sticking with my ramblings, and I'll see you in the next upload. Stay messy, stay kind, and keep making things that spark. If this landed with you, please share the video with a friend who loves oddball romances. Sending it brightens my day and helps build our little community. Seriously, sharing is the nicest compliment you can give. Always.